Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are coming out in less than 7 months, which means the time is ripe for players asking themselves the question, what would make this the best Pokemon game ever for me? One of the great things about Pokemon is that people value different things. Some players care about the designs of the new Pokemon, while others might be super passionate about how the trees look. For me, I care about how good the game is competitively. I really liked Sword and Shield, which, as far as I can tell, is a really unpopular opinion. The reason this probably isn't surprising, though, is that Generation 8 was one of the best generations for competitive Pokemon. So I've been thinking about Generation 9, and what I personally would like the games to be like. And I've also been thinking about what were some of the pain points of Generation 8, and how to remedy them. What I've come up with is a list of Pokemon that, in my opinion, are not balanced in the slightest, and don't have an easy fix when it comes to balancing. I've specifically selected Pokemon that invalidate a majority of other Pokemon simply by existing in a format. That might seem a little confusing, so let's start with an example. Regieleki is a very bizarre Pokemon. It has almost no move coverage, and on paper, its stats aren't anything to write home about. Until you realize that it has the fastest speed stat in the game by over 40 points from the next legal Pokemon. On top of that, its electric moves, which are the vast majority of the moves it uses, all get an innate 50% boost, making it have effectively far stronger offensive stats than it appears on paper. This means that Regieleki actually has base 176 offensive stats on electric moves with a nature that doesn't boost its offenses, and base 180 offensive stats if you're using a nature that boosts your offenses. I know that specific numbers cannot mean much if you aren't as in the weeds as I am when it comes to Pokemon, so let's try and conceptualize the speed stat in easier to understand terms. Regieleki is so fast that almost every Pokemon can't outspeed it while holding a Choice Scarf. Pokemon like Venusaur, who double their speed in the sun, need to run absolute maximum speed investment, including a speed boosting nature, in order to outrun Regieleki even with sun present. If you give Regieleki a Choice Scarf or a speed boost somehow, it will outrun Pokemon like Tapu Koko, Crobat, and Mega Gengar while their speed is doubled. Regieleki isn't just faster than other Pokemon. It's so much faster that a lot of tools used for outspeeding fast and frail Pokemon just straight up don't work, because it still ends up faster. Maybe you don't feel totally convinced that it should be the poster child for Pokemon cut from Scarlet and Violet. Well, there's one final thing about Regieleki that really seals the deal for what makes it so broken. Pokemon Sword and Shield changed the way that the speed stat works in Pokemon. Basically, in every generation before Sword and Shield, the speed order of the Pokemon was set at the beginning of the turn. So something like setting Tailwind wouldn't suddenly make your partner faster. In Sword and Shield, however, that was changed, and speed was made to update mid-turn. Now, if you switch in Kyogre next to your Ludicolo's Swift Swim activates immediately and applies to the current turn. This is overall a good change in my opinion, as it's more intuitive and allows for Pokemon to more directly interact with the current board. The issue is when you have a Pokemon like Regieleki. Regieleki has access to the move Electroweb, a relatively weak attack that hits both opponents and lowers their speed stat by 1 stage, which, as we just mentioned, applies immediately. This specific combination of speed, high damage output, and dynamic speed allows Regieleki to single-handedly invalidate 90% of all Pokemon ever created. So many Pokemon can't handle having their speed dropped, taking damage, and then being targeted by Regieleki's partner. Pretty much any Pokemon that used to hold the Focus Sash item, such as Gengar, Infernape, Nihilego, Bisharp, can't do anything in front of Regieleki. This applies to nearly every fast Pokemon in the game, as even those that don't hold the Focus Sash typically invest most of their stats in speed and their offensive stat. This is made even more ridiculous when you consider Dynamax. Dynamax not only allows Regieleki to double its bulk, its primary weakness, it also gives it access to the moves Max Strike and Max Airstream, allowing it to gain a speed advantage even when the opponent protects. Even without Dynamax, Electroweb allows Regieleki to shut down so many Pokemon simply by being present in a format. Which Pokemon do you think should be cut from Scarlet and Violet? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you're enjoying the content or excited for Scarlet and Violet content, I hope you'll consider subscribing. Currently, only about 3% of my audience is subscribed, and I'm working hard on every video to get that number up. It would really mean a lot to me if you enjoy my content if you'd consider subscribing. Anyway, back to the video. Regieleki is far from the most broken Pokemon in Generation 8, and I'm not saying it doesn't have counterplay. What I am saying is that many Pokemon are made unviable due to Regielecki's presence, and I think that is unhealthy for the game as a whole. Just like Regielecki, the remaining Pokemon on my list are all Pokemon who are just too powerful, whether at one specific thing like Regielecki, or just in general, like Zacian. Zacian is the single most powerful Pokemon ever created, and it isn't even close. For some reason, it has the highest base stat total in the game, tied with Arceus. The thing is though, that it actually has a higher base stat total than Arceus in practice, as Arceus only ever uses one attacking stat at a time, making the other stat worthless. Factoring in the effective base stat total, aka removing the base stat of the attack or special attack stat that the Pokemon doesn't use, Zacian has 40 more stat points than the number 2 Pokemon. This becomes even more ridiculous when you remember that Zacian's ability gives it an innate attack boost whenever it hits the field, further boosting it even more. What about its typing? Well, if you've watched my video on the top 10 best types in the game, you know that Zacian's typing is an incredible balance between defense and offense, combining the single best defensive type in the game with the best overall type. Okay, well, what about its moves? Surely they didn't give this thing a super deep move pool, right? Wrong. Not only does Zacian get a 100 base power physical steel type move that never misses and also does double damage to Dynamax Pokemon. That was kind of a tongue twister. They also gave it the best physical fairy attack in the game, Play Rough. Ordinarily, the good news would be that neither fairy or steel can hit opposing steel types for even neutral damage. But they gave Zacian both Sacred Sword and Close Combat, amazing tools for hitting steel type Pokemon and popular fire types who would also resist both stabs, like Incineroar and Heatran. On top of that, Zacian has access to moves like Wild Charge for Pokemon like Charizard and Kyogre, as well as phenomenal support moves like Swords Dance, Substitute, and Imprison. Zacian is also nearly impossible to switch into. For example, let's take a look at Jellicent. I was building a team for a tournament and theorized that Jellicent might be good. It has Water Absorb, making it good into Kyogre. It resists Steel and is immune to fighting, making it easier to switch in against Zacian, and it can run Strength Sap and Will-O-Wisp to help against physical attackers like Zacian and Groudon. If you run max defense, max HP, and a defense boosting nature, you can still get KO'd by Zacian using Behemoth Blade as you switch in, and then Play Rough next turn. I stopped looking at Jellicent after this point. Jellicent is a good example here because it's known for being at least somewhat bulky. Think about all the Pokemon less bulky than Jellicent, or who can't afford to invest as much into their defenses, or have a worse typing against Zacian. That's like nearly every Pokemon in the game. Zacian is probably the most centralizing Pokemon in the format. Every Pokemon needs to be mindful of how they interact with it. I'm not against centralization, or some Pokemon being better than others. In fact, I think both those things contribute to Pokemon being in a healthier spot. I am against a Pokemon being so much stronger than everything else that it isn't worth even considering a majority of the Pokemon. Zacian and Regielecki have something in common. They're both extremely fast. I was talking to my friend Aaron Trailer, who said something I agree with. Any Pokemon faster than base 130 should have serious drawbacks that make it difficult to use. I actually think Pheromosa is a really well-designed Pokemon for this reason. It's fast and strong, but its bulk is so abysmal that even resisted hits can easily knock it out, leading to clear counterplay. This is not the case for Alecki, Zacian, or Shadow Rider. Calyrex Ghost is part of a trend of Generation 8 Pokemon, that they only don't appear turbo broken because of how they interact with Dynamax. Calyrex is practically the second fastest Pokemon in the game. It's Ghost and Psychic, typing that isn't phenomenal defensively, but very solid offensively due to how strong Ghost is. Calyrex has 3 things that really make it unbalanced. First, the speed. As we mentioned, Calyrex is well over that 130 base speed threshold, but it's too strong given how fast it is. The next thing that really sets Calyrex apart is its ability. As one is literally just 2 abilities combined. Unnerve, which is a powerful ability that prevents the opponent from using berries, and Grim Neigh, which gives Calyrex a special attack boost whenever it takes a KO. This would be enough to make Calyrex unbalanced, but there's more. Calyrex Shadow Rider has a signature move called Astral Barrage. This is a 120 base power move that hits both opponents and also never misses. I think the easiest way of understanding how broken this move is to compare it to Groudon and Kyogre. Hoenn's legendary pair were given a signature move as well, with the release of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. Precipice Blades and Origin Pulse are a 120 and 110 base power move of ground and water type, respectively. In order to ensure these moves weren't too strong, Game Freak made them each only 85% accurate. This makes these moves very risky to use. Everyone who has used Groudon or Kyogre has lost games because they missed their spread move at the wrong time. It doesn't stop them from being usable, but it does cause players to find ways to get around the lower accuracy and not click the attacks recklessly. Now, compare that to Calyrex, who not only is way faster than Groudon and Kyogre, not only has a better offensive typing in Ghost, not only has perfect accuracy so it never misses, but also becomes stronger after getting a KO. To quote the TFT community, who balances this game? I genuinely do not understand what they were thinking when designing this Pokemon. Dynamax helps keep Calyrex in check, because doubling your HP stat is a really good way to ensure Calyrex doesn't knock you out and get a boost. But I fear that without Dynamax, Calyrex would be far too brutal. It's also an especially bad Pokemon to deal with because the better Calyrex is, the more Calyrex is used. And as Calyrex can one-shot other Calyrex, speed ties become very important, which is just never a good space to be in. Speaking of Pokemon that are only kept in check by Dynamax, let's talk about Urshifu. Urshifu landed in a really good spot in Generation 8. It was good in certain formats and certain teams, but never felt necessary or overpowered. Just like Calyrex though, the only reason Urshifu didn't feel oppressive is because Dynamax keeping Pokemon alive for longer gave them better tools to weather its powerful attacks. What is it that makes Urshifu so problematic? First, its ability Unseen Fist. Unseen Fist allows Urshifu to ignore, protect, and attack Pokemon directly. This is an extraordinarily powerful ability that promotes much more aggressive gameplay than we're used to seeing. It's worth noting that Max Guard does still block Urshifu's attacks, another way that Dynamax helps keep it in check. The other quirky thing about both Urshifu forms is that its signature move, Wicked Blow and Surging Strikes, always crits. This means that effectively, both moves are around 120 base power. Now, that's extremely powerful for a single target attack, but the real kicker has to do with the unique property of critical hits. Critical hits don't just let a Pokemon do 50% more damage. They also ignore things like attack drops, defense boosts, and reflect and light screen. One of the best ways to slow down powerful physical attackers is the ability Intimidate or the move Reflect. Urshifu ignores both of these and does immense damage. Both Urshifu also get access to good priority attacks in Sucker Punch and Aqua Jet, as well as the great stab move Close Combat. I worry that in a format without Dynamax, Urshifu could easily be unbalanced and promote a hyper-offensive style of gameplay. Another Pokemon that became broken after the Isle of Armor DLC expansion is actually a Pokemon that was pretty mediocre for the early part of Sword and Shield. Rillaboom received 2 massive buffs in quick succession, with its hidden ability being made available quickly followed by the new moves introduced in the Isle of Armor. Rillaboom's ability is very good, but not inherently broken. Grassy Surge creates 5 turns of grassy terrain, having the damage of Earthquake, powering up grass-type attacks, and healing all Pokemon that touch the ground. The issue is the new move they gave Rillaboom, Grassy Glide. This is a 70 base power move that gets priority when grassy terrain is up, in addition to the power boost. Priority moves are normally kept in check by one of 2 ways, having an extremely low base power, or being conditional like Sucker Punch. Grassy Glide is neither, and it's so strong that it can KO Pokemon like Kyogre and Regieleki from full HP. Rillaboom is yet another Pokemon that is kept in check by the extra HP Dynamax provides, but without it, nearly any moderately bulky Pokemon can be knocked out from middling HP from a bulky Assault Vest Rillaboom. Even with Dynamax providing extra HP, offering another way to overwrite terrain, and letting players bolster their defenses or lower Rillaboom's offenses, Rillaboom has been a phenomenal Pokemon during Generation 8. I think if it makes it into Generation 9, there's a very good chance it causes some problems. Our next Pokemon is one I'm a little on the fence about. Grimmsnarl is the last Pokemon we'll talk about that was introduced in Generation 8. It's a phenomenal support Pokemon, taking advantage of its ability Prankster, combined with its extremely deep supporting move pool and solid defensive typing to provide immense support for its team and disruption to its opponents. It's an extremely strong Pokemon, and one of the premier support Pokemon of Generation 8, but it's in a spot where it's hard to say whether or not it's unbalanced. A lot of the support Grimmsnarl typically provides has to do with its priority Reflect and Light Screen, which have much more value thanks to how they make Dynamax Pokemon extraordinarily tanky. It also offers speed control in the form of Thunder Wave or Scary Face, but again, this is normally paired with Dynamax Pokemon taking a surprise KO. It's been such a dominant Pokemon the last 3 years, but it's so difficult to tell how much of that has to do with Dynamax specifically. If Dynamax were confirmed to be in Scarlet and Violet, I'd definitely say we'd be better off without Grimmsnarl. Alright, enough with the Generation 8 Pokemon. Now for the classics. You already know who we're starting with. Do I even need to tell you? Incineroar. Who balances this game? There was a point in Generation 7 where Incineroar was on over 75% of all teams. At the World Championships, over 83% of all players on the final day used Incineroar. That's 65 out of 78. And do you know what they did going into Generation 8? They gave Incineroar a huge buff. Incineroar is arguably the best support Pokemon of all time. It has Intimidate to weaken opposing physical attackers, Fake Out, which is one of the best support moves ever, and amazing Natural Bulk and defensive typing. On top of that, it has an extremely valuable role as a pivot. A pivot is a Pokemon that allows you to switch into your other Pokemon easier. Incineroar is relatively slow, which is actually a strength. In Generation 7, it used the move U-Turn to help bring its partner Pokemon in safely. However, in Generation 8, Incineroar gained access to the move Parting Shot. Unlike U-Turn, which does a measly amount of damage, Parting Shot lowers the target's attack and special attack stat, and then allows the user to switch out. It's also a sound type move, so it can't be blocked by Substitute. I have no idea why they gave Incineroar arguably the single best move it could have asked for when it was already too powerful, but that's the world we live in. Incineroar almost always runs Fake Out, Parting Shot, and a physical stab move like Flare Blitz or Throat Chop, but it also has other good moves it can run like Taunt, Burning Jealousy, Snarl, and Protect. To make matters worse, it has an incredible array of viable items it can hold. Safety Goggles for Amoonguss and Venusaur, Shuka Berry for Groudon and Landorus, Citrus Berry, Assault Vest, and Figgy Berry for General Strength, Weakness Policy for Surprise Factor and a Dynamax option, the list goes on. Incineroar is wild because not only is it one of the single best Pokemon in a general use case, but it's also so flexible with items and its fourth move slot, you can actually tailor it to help you with specific problematic matchups and Pokemon as well. Incineroar to me is kind of the rich get richer Pokemon. If your Pokemon is already good, Incineroar will help keep them alive and get them into position, making them even better. And because Incineroar isn't a Pokemon whose primary goal is to do damage, it's very difficult to make beating it the main strategy of a team. In other words, if a Pokemon isn't already popular, that's probably because it's weaker than the Pokemon currently being used. And Incineroar, by virtue of its ridiculous supporting options, only makes that gap even wider. Speaking of Pokemon I hate that were popular in Generation 7, Xerneas. Longtime viewers of my channel know that Xerneas is one of my least favorite Pokemon ever. Xerneas has a signature move called Geomancy. This move, if you're holding the Power Herb item, immediately doubles your special attack, special defense, and speed stats. Xerneas' ability also acts as a built-in life orb for fairy attacks without the recoil, further boosting its damage output. In other words, with just a single attack, Xerneas becomes extremely fast, powerful, and bulky, and it also has the best type in the game, with both Moonblast as a powerful single target move and Dazzling Gleam to hit both opponents. In the formats where it was legal in Generation 6 and 7, Xerneas was the #1 Pokemon to beat. People had to run multiple Xerneas-specific techs on their team, such as Roar, Red Card, Haze, Taunt, etc. Though not the case during Generation 8, Xerneas at its peak is an even more centralizing Pokemon than Zacian. A single bad turn against Xerneas can instantly lose you the game. Xerneas against Xerneas was also extremely susceptible to critical hits, which made using Xerneas even more frustrating. I would love to never have Xerneas in the game again, and I think in many ways we just got lucky that Xerneas was hurt more than helped by Dynamax. I have 2 more Pokemon to talk to you about, but not because they're too strong, I just don't like them personally and think they're bad for the game. First, Venusaur. Venusaur is a very stupid Pokemon because people just run Focus Sash Sleep Powder, pair it with a Sunsetter, and hope they hit their 75% accurate Sleep Powder and that their opponent stays asleep. It's uncompetitive, uninteresting, very luck-based, and does not do anything good for the overall health of the game. It isn't the most broken Pokemon, and it does have counterplay, but I think it would be better for everyone if Venusaur didn't make it into Scarlet and Violet. Our final Pokemon is one that didn't even make it into Sword and Shield. Smeargle is one of the worst Pokemon of all time. By virtue of being able to learn every move in the game, it's extremely annoying to play against, and often has an annoying mix of supportive moves like Wide Guard and Follow Me, and disruptive moves like Fake Out and Spore. To make matters worse, it also has Moody. meaning if you don't remove it quickly, it can sometimes get an annoying boost that makes your life very unpleasant. Smeargle is a fun, goofy concept in theory, but in practice, it just isn't worth the headache. And I'd love to leave it behind like the mistake it is. And that's every Pokemon I'd cut from Scarlet and Violet. I'd love to know what you all think about this video, so let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.